AI isn't just an experiment anymore. For enterprises, it's becoming the foundation for transformation. But scaling AI takes more than models and pilots. It requires a secure, governed environment built to last. That's what an enterprise AI landing zone delivers. Think of an enterprise landing zone as a blueprint for AI at scale. Here, projects, models, agents, and their runtimes are organized into production and non production groups. Teams can innovate freely while IT enforces guardrails and governance. It integrates the essentials such as API management for secure access, vector databases for intelligent and context, and observability tools for tracing and monitoring. Every call, every agent, every model is secured and accountable. The integration with your existing enterprise data sources is not an afterthought, but it is completely accounted for in form of connections. Because governance is built in from day one, compliance, data protection, and cost control aren't afterthoughts. They are part of the architecture. And it enforces Microsoft philosophy of responsible AI practices from day one. And AI will not go out of your control. This also means enterprises can confidently move from proof of concepts to full scale AI platforms. So, what can you build on top of the landing zone we are creating? Let's actually envision the end goal here. Agentic applications come to life on AI Foundry. Agents that just don't respond, but reason, plan, and act. They understand intent, pull context from your enterprise data, and orchestrate workflows across systems. They are powered by small and large language models. You could use frameworks such as Semantic Kernel, LangChain, and AI Foundry SDK to build such agents. AI Foundry also comes extended with applied AI services so that you could use familiar services such as speech to text, text to speech, vision, language that have been using all these days. Also, you have connectivity to enterprise search, PostgreSQL, or even custom Python tools. They surface in experiences that your teams could readily use in form of Copilot chat, Fabric web apps, or like they could be custom homegrown applications. Everything is monitored end to end with application insights. As you can see in this architecture diagram, there will be a need for the enterprise to serve LLMs with your corporate data. Example, if you want to reach out from an LLM to a PostgreSQL data or a Fabric data, then you need actually some kind of an intermediate server in the form of MCP servers. This architecture also addresses that. API management is a single gateway that would interface your agents, large language models, your corporate data backend services, etc., all from the front end. The familiar client tools, such as Visual Studio Code, that could be used as MCP clients, are also part of this ecosystem. If you use Copilot Studio as part of M365 to develop your agents, they could be easily integrated with AI Foundry with best in class frameworks such as Semantic Kernel. Clone the GitHub repository that is shown here. This is the repository that I will be sharing in the link below the video. So I have organized this repository into bunch of files and folders. So the architectures we have used throughout this session could be found in AI architecture package. I have actually put more architectures than needed for this. As I put subsequent videos around intelligent AI gateway in form of APIM and MCP servers, you will really find this useful. Also, there are two versions of this. Like I said, one is the default one with no capability host. And if you want to deploy the capability host, then go to the folder below this and you can actually deploy that. So that's the only difference. Otherwise, that I have given a detailed README file for you to go through, and also the detailed steps to spin the repository up. So let's discuss at more detail what this repository contains and how to use this repository. There are two kinds of deployment configurations within this GitHub repository. I'll paste the GitHub repository link in the description below the video. So the configuration that you could use are simplified and the one with capability hosts. A capability host offers state management in form of thread management, and the messages on the thread could be saved perpetually as long as you need in a long-term database called Cosmos DB. So Microsoft maintains and manages the state. Microsoft creates threads and also stores all the messages and runs on the thread into this stateful database. If you don't need that, then you could go with a simple configuration, but that doesn't mean that it's not an enterprise configuration. Both of them are, and it all depends on your use cases. There is an extra component you need to take care for capability hosts. You need to actually delegate your subnet uh, to a proper Microsoft app environment, so that Microsoft could inject the containers that it uses for capability hosts into your subnet. So that is the only difference. Apart from that, there is not a much difference between both of these deployments. The deployment actually comes with Azure AI Foundry and a default project. It is completely secure with private endpoints and the public access disabled. We separate workload and infrastructure subscriptions with an assumption that most of the enterprises will have a platform landing zone or a data platform landing zone that actually maintains private DNS zones in a centralized location, etc. Right? So no one likes to create, private DNS zones everywhere if you want to use your routable private IP address. So the services such as storage and search, either you could actually, use the search service if you want to or not. But most of the patterns, especially the RAG patterns, are very common these days, and therefore I highly recommend the storage and search service. Application insights and diagnostic settings are set up so that enterprise grade monitoring would be in place to test out right away in your non-prod environment, and when you are promoting this to production environment. You can also enable external third-party monitoring and log analytics systems with your existing monitoring as needed for your enterprise. Managed identities would be turned on. There is a key vault provided if you want to save the certificates, and your deployments warrant your own customer managed keys. Also, RBAC permissions are taken care of within this deployment, so that the right permissions pre and post the deployment are properly given at proper locations. Example, capability host is an example where Cosmos DB needs precise permissions. Just to summarize, the AI Foundry is the centralized service, um, and AI Foundry contains AI projects. AI Foundry itself contains connections to multiple services. In the management plane, AI Foundry project can have models at the project level, and you can actually have deployments ranging from Azure OpenAI models to Mistral, um, to Llama, Grok, etc., as your use cases warrant. Also, while building the agents, you require state management in complex of the cases, and some of the enterprise grade capabilities, such as maintaining centralized diagnostic settings, also hooking up open telemetry with application insights, and storing logs for longer term in log analytics workspace. So, reviewing further, the only prerequisite to run this Terraform is to bring two subscriptions with you, workload and infrastructure. If you don't have two subscriptions, you can actually provide the same subscription for both workload and infrastructure, and in that way, two resource groups will be created within one subscription. And also, the most common case is you won't be creating a virtual network for this. Bring your own virtual network and create two subnets within that virtual network. One subnet would be delegated for agents if you prefer capability host implementations to prefer long term state. Otherwise, private endpoint subnet is mandatory since this is a secured enterprise grade template. Private DNS zones, if you're maintaining them in a centralized location, you bring those private DNS zones with you and make the private DNS zones entries for the following DNS zones mentioned. You need to have contributor access to both subscriptions, and especially since you will be dealing with RBAC, the preferred is owner. And please run this Terraform template with a service principal in production wherein it has the owner access. Before deployment, please ensure, depending on the services you are spinning up, all the private DNS zones. Make sure if you are creating these private DNS zones for the very first time, the proper DNS forwarding rules are set. Clone the repository. The first thing you do is you actually open the sample Terraform dot tfvars example that I have provided along with this, and you can see various components within that you need to fill to start. So I can go through those in a bit. As far as the core settings goes, so in your tfvars, fill your project name, fill your environment, the location. Please ensure to pick proper location, because not all locations have the models that you might prefer. And also deploying API management and do load balancing for the backend services or backend AI foundries is a separate exercise, and I will deal with it in a separate video itself, and I will tag that video below this link. As far as subscription IDs, fill your subscription IDs, the resource groups, um, and fetch your subnet depending on how many subnets you need. In this case, I don't need agent subnet because I am within the no cap host deployment. But if you choose to do a cap host deployment, um, then in the cap host deployment you must provide the agent subnet for delegation. So I have both of those listed out here, um, as shown. One is Terraform Foundry with the cap host, one is without cap host. um, yeah, let's continue reviewing. Like I said, right, so you can actually fetch your own customer manager keys and store them in the keyword. As far as environment goes, choose the storage queue depending on your needs. For production, definitely you might be needing geo-redundant storage, and also the search queue in the production should be standard if possible. AI Foundry SKU is a zero everywhere, and also please ensure the backup options are enabled on each service depending on your RTO RPO policies. And monitoring depends on the tools you bring and how much you use out of the box. Also, underneath the security, the private endpoints would be created. RBAC permissions will be given, network isolation, if you choose to do capability hosts, um, all of the good stuff, right? So as far as deployment outputs are concerned, you actually get a Foundry Hub, a Foundry project, a sample GPT-4o model deployment in this case, AI search service, network configuration, etc. So I clearly called out all other items. I will let you read. The intention is definitely not to show you how to code in Terraform, but it is actually, like how we organized and all of that stuff. So we organized as modules, right? So for RBAC, monitoring, networking, security, as shown, and the main.tf makes a call to all of these services. As far as what you get out of this, let's go through in Azure. So if you spin this one, then you are going to, depending on which configuration you choose, whether you choose the configuration with capability hosts or not, you actually will will get in your resource group all these components. As you can see, there is one AI Foundry, AI project, and I have search service, key vault, um, and storage in this. It doesn't have capability host. But if you see the other one with capability host, then you will see my AI Foundry. Um, the only difference is you get to see the Cosmos DB, and Cosmos DB will have collections for the thread management. So let me go and show you the AI Foundry. So in the AI Foundry, as you know, the agents are GA in Foundry-based deployments. I created a simple agent with a sample code interpreter turn on actions. And as you can see, I chose GPT-4o. So given a prompt to draw a 3D sine curve for a particle oscillation, and I asked it to make up the data. Yeah, it's good enough. It has done so. We proved that agents are working. So you can also set up tracing as part of this. So tracing comes out of the box. If you click on the manage data service, you have the tracing setup here, so that you can actually use Azure AI Foundry SDK to trace and track everything. So as far as the agents goes, as you all know, um, when you are speaking with these agents, a thread will be created depending on, like if you want to maintain manage the state, then you can definitely store the thread messages and runs, right? You could use inbuilt playground to play with the agents. I'll do a separate video on how to use AI Foundry, but as far as this video is concerned, this is just to spin the infrastructure. So if you, for example, go into the AI Foundry that has a capability host, it looks exactly the same, feel exactly the same, with the only difference being, the state is managed in the backend Cosmos DB. So please ensure proper permissions are given to your backup Cosmos. So let's go here and say try in playground, and once it opens, we can say if 2i plus 1 is equal to 4, um, then what is 2i? So let's just ask that question, and sure enough, you can see the question we asked maintained in the state. And it will also ensure in the future, if you remember the thread id and get the information, think about scenarios where you are meaningfully talking with your customers, and you don't want to start your conversation from the scratch. This is the way you need to do that, right? So think of it as a state machine. With that said, I think let's move on to understand what we have reviewed so far as part of this exercise, and we'll go from there. So let's bring it all together. The Enterprise AI Landing Zone provides a secure, governed foundation. The detailed infrastructure ensures compliance, network isolation, and integration with your enterprise systems. On top of that, the agentic architecture unlocks the ability to build intelligent, context aware applications that transform the way work gets done. With the GitHub repository, you don't just see theory, you can deploy it yourself today. Whether it's copilots for finance, AI powered sourcing in supply chains, or intelligent assistants for customer service, the landing zone is your path from pilot projects to production. This is how enterprises turn ambition into AI reality. It is scalable, secure, and future ready. Thank you for joining me on this walkthrough, and I can't wait to see what you will build.